Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 24th of February of 2024. Today we have lots of very interesting details and updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about Avdiivka direction. Today, according to information we have, the Russians as a result of offensive operation managed to establish control over two villages, Lastochkina and Severne. When talking about Lastochkina, we got significant number of details and updates, including the posts in Telegram and Twitter and X, and also we have some video confirmations of Russian control. When talking about Severne, still, let's say by 8 p.m. of the local time, we still haven't received even a single geolocated confirmation of such a progress, but most of the experts, reliable experts, confirmed this information. So let's start from the beginning. First, let's talk about Severne. During the day, we got few videos, few geolocations from this territory, one FAB strike in this area, and few posts from the same direction. The posts were published by reliable resources, including the military journalists like Marat Hayrulin. We discussed his posts in the past. He is a very reliable source, and according to him, as a result of offensive operation, the Russians managed to establish control over the village. But yet, once again, we haven't received even a single geolocated confirmation of that. I'm not saying that this is not true. I believe it's true. Severne is under complete Russian control, but at least we need a little bit more reliable, let's say, updates or something like this. When talking about Lastochkina, as you can see, we have significant number of details, geolocations, and so on. So let's start from the beginning. Starting this morning, we start receiving updates about additional Russian progress in the village. And according to information we have, according to different mappers, the Russians established control over the eastern part. Some mappers were saying that the Russians established control over the northeastern part. So without any proofs or geolocations. And later, the first geolocation we received somewhere at 5:30 p.m. of the local time. On this video, we can see the Russian soldier who was inside of Lastochkina. At least according to him, he is in Lastochkina. He's making this video from the ruins inside of the village. He started moving from the building, but anyway, using this video is very difficult. It was very difficult to geolocate whether the Russian soldier was in Lastochkina or not. So at least when watching this video, we still had some doubts whether the Russians answered or not. Later, we got additional video also from the Lastochkina. We see 4 Russian soldiers, and according to them, they are also located somewhere in among the buildings, among the ruins in the residential part of the village. But yet, using this, let's say, photo, using this video, it's very difficult to geolocate its position. So for now, let's say by 7:30, we still can't, let's say, confirm whether the Russians captured the village or not. And somewhere at 6 p.m. We got the final confirmation of Russian control. On this video, we can see the Russian flag above the village of the eastern part. This is a very important note because, let's say, at 5-7 p.m. of the local time, of Moscow time, the Russians provided just the evidence that they established control just over the eastern part of the village. And later, before 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. of the local time, we got additional reports, additional updates from the ground. We got additional videos from different part of the village. According to information we have, Lastochkina was captured by 41st Brigade of Russian Armed Forces. This is another video of the Russian flag, so significant numbers. We see water reserves. We see that the Russians can feel themselves pretty comfortable without any problems, without any risk of being attacked by the Ukrainian forces. So we see that the Russians have a strong control over the village. And right before I start making the video, we got the final confirmation of Ukrainians abandoning the village. On this video, we can see the road. This video was geolocated. Maybe from this zoom, it's very difficult to see, but if we zoom in the video, we see at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 black points on the road, and these are Ukrainian soldiers, probably the forces of Azov Brigade. And I'll remind you that Lastochkina was under the responsibilities of 3rd Azov Brigade. The positions a little bit to the north from Lastochkina were under responsibilities of 47th Mechanized Brigade. This is the 47th Brigade, this is Azov Brigade. The positions in the vicinity of Severne was under the responsibilities of 53rd Mechanized Brigades, and as you can see, most of the villages were abandoned by the Ukrainians. So if we summarize everything, obviously the Russians established control not just over the villages, but also over the fields and the tree lines between the towns. So significant progress for the Russians, and I'll remind you that 24th of February is the anniversary of the special military operation. So obviously the Russians were in a hurry, trying to capture the villages and to provide Putin additional details and additional, let's say, victories during his president campaign. So we see that the progress is significant. Obviously, the Russians will continue offensive operation. They are not going to stop on the line because the Ukrainian positions are located on the lowland. And I'll remind you that this is the current Ukrainian main defense belt on this direction. And currently, the Ukrainians still have some positions, let's say, to the south of the main defense belt. And we're talking about 3 villages. We are talking about the village by the name of Orlovka, this one the next defense belt after Lastachkina, and Toninka. And obviously the Ukrainians don't have possibilities to hold these positions, and not because of complete absence of defense belts or something like this. The Russians are saying that the main factor, the main reason the Ukrainians abandoned their positions in Severna and Lastachkina were the FAPs. The Russians are bombing this territory heavily, and believe me, I can't tell you for sure, of course, but something tells me that if the Russians continue bombing Orlovka and Toninka as they used to bomb Severna and Lastachkina, obviously the Ukrainians will not, let's say, stay there for a long time. They will continue movements further to the west. Currently, the Ukrainians have a very big problems with air defense. If they want to stop the Russians, they need to do just one thing. They need to create at least some, let's say, air defense superiority or air defense control over the sky above Ukraine. And the most probably interesting and the most very funny update we received from Avdiivka, don't be surprised, and that was very interesting video. I was shocked and surprised when I saw this video. On this video we can see former US soldier, US officer who served in Afghanistan for more than 10 years. He published this video today, and he was talking about the situation in Avdiivka. He told that he used to serve in Afghanistan for more than 10 years, and he was saying that he haven't seen in Afghanistan the things that he saw in Ukraine during the special military operation in Donbass. He told that the entire towns were reduced to ruins, and he hadn't seen such things in Afghanistan. And he also added that Russia and United States of America should be allies, and he told that he came to Donbass to fight with the Russians against Kiev, against Zelensky. He brought his United States flag, and after the end of his small discussion, explanation what he was doing in Ukraine, he went to the building somewhere in Avdiivka and established his United States flag also above some building in Avdiivka. So we can say that not very likely that Ukrainians lost Avdiivka, but according to this young United States officer, former officer, United States of America haven't lost Avdiivka, because at least we can find US flag about this town. Very interesting, and to tell the truth, very funny situation. Now we are moving further to the southern direction, and to be more precise, in direction of the village by the name of Robotyne, where the Russians, as a result of clashes during the previous 24 hours, managed to establish complete, as I understand, control over the village by the name of Robotyne. Let's start from the beginning, and the beginning was that, according to the German military expert Julian Europke, the Russians by the morning of 2024 managed to restore control over the fields between Robotyne and Verbovo, over the fortifications that the Russians lost as a result of Ukraine's greatest counter-offensive operation. So let's add the polygons and maps. So let's say by the morning of 24th of February of the local time, the Russians on this direction returned control or established control over the fields between Robotyne and Verbovo, and that was the control of the Russian armed forces, let's say, at the beginning of the 24th of February. The Russians developed their offensive operation from the fields. The Russians were attacking, let's say, to the west, to the east, and they restored control over everything and forced the Ukrainians to fall back. And later, during the day, we start receiving significant number of geolocations and details from inside of Robotyne. And this is the first video we received somewhere at 11 a.m. of the local time. On this video, we can see 2 Russian armored vehicles moving through Robotyne, through the central part of Robotyne, from the western part to the eastern part. As you can see, the Russians were attacking in the eastern direction, trying to suppress probably the Ukrainian forces, Ukrainian positions. As you can see, there were no counterattacks against the Russian forces, no artillery bombings, no mortar bombings, no anti-tank missiles. So the Russians were feeling themselves pretty comfortable inside of the village. They were suppressing the Ukrainians and bypassed the entire Robotyne from one side to another. Few probably minutes later we got additional video, but on this scene we can see the Russians moving on the personal carrier from the north to the south, also doing the same attack in the Ukrainian positions to the east of the village by the name of Robotyne. The tank was moving from the north to the south, no problems, no barriers, no counterattacks, no counter missile strikes, so everything was comfortable, everything was secured without any problems from the Ukrainian side. So those were two videos, let's say, of clearing operation when the Russians were moving through the village. Let's add some arrows to the map. I will try to explain to you how the Russians were moving. So the first video we saw, the Russians entered Robotyne on this street and were moving along the central part, and they reached this line according to the video. So the Russians entered, two personal carriers, they were attacking the Ukrainians, moving something like this, and on this position the video ended. The second video we saw was the Russian movement from the north to the south along this street. The same story. The Russian personal carrier was moving to the south, attacking the Ukrainian positions, and both videos shown us that the Russians were attacking to the east. And this is very important detail, and I'll explain to you why a little bit later. So that was the situation, let's say, at the first half of the 24th of February. Later, the same day, we got additional video from the Russian side. On this video, we got more specific details, and now we see also two personal carrier moving inside of Robotyne through the fields. We see the Russians were attacking to the north, as you can see, not to the east, but to the north, trying to suppress the Ukrainian positions. And the main difference of this video with the previous one is that this is not just like moving through the streets, but this video also show us the landing operation. There were two personal carriers, as you can see. One of the personal carriers moved to the north along this run. The second one moved further on the central part of the street and reached the post office. So after that, the second personal carrier stopped at the post office, and then we can see the landing operation. The Russians abandoned the armored vehicle and entered the ruins, or the buildings the ruins that left from the post office in the central part of Robotyne. The Russians take their positions. Obviously, there were still Ukrainians, because the Russians tried to act very, let's say, very carefully without any risks. And after that, the central part was under complete Russian control. So this is the video. And after the infantry landed, the personal carriers left the battlefield. So if we return back to the map, the Russians were moving something like this. They were moving through the fields on this direction, entered this line. Then the first personal carrier started moving to the north. So the first one moved in this position. Probably there was like a landing operation. And the second personal carrier was moving further along the street in direction of this post office. And the final, let's say, scenes with the Russians we saw in this area. So of course we haven't received any geolocations from the northern part, but I think that the Russians established complete control, and I believe that by the time you see this video, a few hours later, I made this video. Obviously, the entire Robotyne will be under Russian control. Why I'm telling you this, because today, once again, is anniversary of the special military operation, and of course, it's very important for the Russians. It's a very important media victory, very important, let's say, spirit victory of the Russian armed forces to reduce till zero the Ukrainian results of the greatest counteroffensive operation by the date of anniversary of special military operation. This is very important. And today the Russians will do this, and obviously somewhere at 11 p.m. of the local time, maybe at 12 a.m. we're gonna receive the video with the Russian flag, and probably by the time you see this video, you will already seen the flag of Russian armed forces somewhere in the central part of Robotyne. So that's it. The end of Robotyne, the battle for Robotyne started and ended on the 24th of February. But there are two important things that I would like to discuss with you. And first of all, we need to talk about this video of FPV drone strike against the Ukrainian forces. During the day, we also received significant number of FPV drone strikes against the Ukrainians inside of Robotyne, and you need to note one of the most important things. Let's take a look at this video once again. The Russian FPV drone was flying. He discovered the Russian armored vehicle, and he was trying to attack. What is important in this video is that the Ukrainians were moving from the south to the north. So basically, this is not like attack against the Ukrainian tank. That was attack against the retreating armored vehicles of armored forces of Ukraine. So something like this was happening. The Ukrainians were moving along this street to the north, not along this one, but probably along this one street. They were moving to the north, trying to get as close as possible to the main evacuation roads. And somewhere here, that tank was damaged by the Russian FPV drones. So these videos is the videos of Ukrainians' retreat from Robotyne. And the Russians were trying to hunt them during this process. So this is like 100% evidence of the fact that Ukrainians at least tried to save the armored vehicles from the village, and that they ran away from this territory without even giving any clashes or battle for the Russians. And the second most important evidence about the end of the battle for Robotyne is the report of the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation. Today the Russians reported that as a result of clashes on Kherson direction, the entire Kherson direction, starting from city of Kherson till Robotyne, the Ukrainians lost just 35 soldiers. So that means that there were no Ukrainians at all. Maybe just few tens of soldiers were inside of Robotyne, and the main reason of that is that Ukrainians during the battle for Avdiivka redeployed significant number of reserves from Robotyne to Avdiivka, and now there were no soldiers. There were just few squads, few platoons trying to hold the foothold, but when the Russians discovered that, it was not a very big problem for the Russians to collapse this area completely. Furthermore, if you remember, a few days ago we were talking about the Russian attempts to attack the northern flank of Robotyne. During the previous few days, the Russians already made attempts to attack Robotyne, but they tried the previous attempts to cut the north from the south and to create a cauldron. But those attacks were repelled by the Ukrainians, so that's why the Russians made the decision not to risk anymore, and they started attacking Robotyne itself. And some Ukrainian soldiers managed to evacuate. During the previous 24 hours, the Ukrainians made few attempts to, let's say, to bring some reserves closer to the line of combat contact, but not with the purpose to stabilize the situation, but to hold the supply roads, to hold evacuation roads. It's the same story as they did in Avdiivka by sending 3rd Azov Brigade. They was trying to hold the flanks and to hold the safe roads while the main forces were abandoning and withdrawing their positions. This story took place, as you can see, to the north of Robotyne. The Russians covered this territory with multi-launch rocket systems. And the second road the Ukrainians were using from Verbova to the north in direction of Mala-Takmachka. But the Russians also discovered that supply road and bombed the Ukrainians' abandoning forces with flamethrower systems, dealing them significant damage. So the Robotyne has ended, and the Ukrainians lost every single square centimeters they managed to get during the Ukrainian greatest counteroffensive. This is a complete disaster of Ukrainian command. Now we are moving back to Bakhmut-Artyomov's direction. As you can see, we are not moving step by step. We are moving like according to priorities. Avdiivka, then Robotyne, and now Bakhmut-Artyomov's direction. If you remember, during the battle for this territory, we were keeping for a very long time this stronghold and this stronghold in the gray zone, because we didn't have any geolocated confirming the Russian progress on this territory. And today, on the 24th of February, the Russians published the first evidence of control over this territory. We see there is a snowfall, which confirms that this battle took place not today, probably 2 weeks ago or something like this, when there was snow on this territory. And on this video, we can see another Russian landing operation, how the Russians managed to establish control over the trenches, the very heavy clashes, significant number of personnel carriers moving to the trenches, landing operation, attempts to capture, attack the Ukrainians. And the most important and interesting part is the final part of the video, where we can see completely exhausted and tired Ukrainian soldiers moving from the trenches in direction of Chasiv Yar. As you can see, they're not even running, they're moving very slowly, exhausted, very tired, with one wish to get as close as possible to some hot place to drink hot tea and to sleep as long as possible, and when to wake up to see that everything have already finished. So those were Ukrainians, exhausted Ukrainians moving to Chasiv Yar. Based on this video, we have changed the color of map showing this territory under complete Russian control. Furthermore, we got additional updates from Ivanovska itself. The Russians continue offensive operation. The sources reported about additional control over the streets on the eastern part of the village. So as you can see, the Ukrainians don't have possibilities to control the territory, and the Russians published additional videos of multi-launch rocket bombing of the western part of the village. As you can see, the Russians are storming the eastern part, but they're bombing the western part because western part is close to the main supply and logistic roads that goes through Seversky Donetsk Donbass Canal. So that's why the Russians were bombing this territory. They were bombing the territory with the purpose to damage everything they could. And also we have additional FPV drone strike against the intersection of the canal and the road N32 that goes to Ivanovsk with the purpose to completely collapse the logistic of armed forces of Ukraine on this direction. As you can see, nothing can bypass this road. During the daylight, everything was destroyed and would destroy it as well. So we can say that the days of Ivanovsk are numbered. And due to the critical situation in Ivanovsk, the Ukrainians start abandoning their positions in Klishchievka, Andreevka. They start withdrawing their position, trying to redeploy as many as possible soldiers as close as possible to Canal and Chasiv Yar with the purpose, if necessary, to stabilize the front line and not to allow the Russians, let's say, on the shoulders of the Ukrainian forces to enter Chasiv Yar itself. And because of that fact, currently the Ukrainian defense built along the railways collapsed, and it's like the weakest point of Ukrainian defense. And today we got additional video of another Russian offensive operation. The Ukrainians left few soldiers of rearguard forces that were captured without even a shot. The Ukrainians took a decision to surrender as soon as they saw the Russians moving to them, and of course the Russians saved their lives. So that was the situation in this area, and we expect additional progress of the armed forces of Russian Federation in this direction as well. So as you can see, the entire line of combat contact from the Ukrainian side is collapsing. Now we are moving to the final main important area, to Novomikhailivka. The Russians continue advancing on this direction as well, and today the most important updates were coming from the village. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians published at least 2 videos, geolocated videos of destroyed tanks inside of the central part of Avdiivka and in the vicinity of the cemetery. Both tanks were destroyed, so the Russians continue clearing operation, yet we haven't received any geolocations confirming the Russian progress and inside of the village, but obviously within the next few days we're going to receive additional updates. Novomikhailivka also is about to fall, and for me it's obvious. And once again, according to information we have, the Russians continue storming of Krasnogorovka from the south, from Marinka, and from the north, from direction of Nivolskaya. Yet we haven't received any geolocation confirming this, but just Lancet strikes against artillery forces and so on. So, but everything, the important things continue developing here as well. And now let's talk, let's have a few words about the Kiev. We have a lot of very interesting details and updates. As you can see, according to information we have, the Ukrainians are planning to start collecting the production of F-16, not production, but now the parts from the world is heading of F-16s to Ukraine. Lots of small parts that they will be collected all together on the territory of Ukraine. It allowed the Ukrainians to reduce the risk of being discovered by the Russians. The first F-16 parts should arrive in the April, so that means that somewhere in the beginning and the end of May and beginning of June, the Ukrainians are going to start using this type of weapon. And furthermore, we got a report that Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, arrived in Ukraine, and they signed, let's say, a security agreement with Zelensky. The same story took place today with the Prime Minister of Italy. They signed the security agreement, and now we see a significant number of countries that have already signed security agreement with Kiev. And this event took place today during the, let's say, the anniversary of the special military operation. Also, we have in Kiev a person who is responsible for such a bloody clashes for the previous 2 years, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of United Kingdom, who refused to sign peace agreement with Russia when it was possible. He also arrived, and also after all these things, we got Zelensky saying that the 2024 we're going to be in defense, and in 2025 Ukraine is going to start another counter-offensive operation, and it's very difficult to understand what is he going to do and what kind of territories he is going to counterattack to. Maybe he's talking about Kiev, that in 2025 Ukraine is going to counterattack in Kiev, because obviously if everything continues developing the same way, by 2025 every single square meter on the Russian side of Dnieper will be under complete Russian control. Who knows what Zelensky was talking about, but obviously soon we're gonna find out. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds you to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.